line, boy, it's time to break it down. Grab a mic, kill the stage, yeah, second nature now. Mama said I make a proud, I told her I made a vow. Just to wait around in the year, I'll put her in a house on the shore.
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Nightwing2303 from kicksoncourt.com. Today we have another performance review, and it is on the 2012 release of the Reebok Question. So I have not played in a pair of these since I was about 14 or 15 years old. So I was a freshman in high school. It's been about 13 years, and I was really excited to play in a pair. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Upon first impression, honestly, the traction just doesn't look impressive whatsoever. It's just a flat, smooth, translucent outsole. Usually I don't prefer translucent outsoles. I like rubber outsoles, solid rubber. I feel that they have better court grip overall. However, whatever they use for Reebok for their translucent outsoles, it's insane. This stuff grips to the floor like nothing I've ever felt, and it's like you have a sticky mat already like on the bottom of your shoe. Now, as you can see, or hopefully you can see it, but there is tons of debris all over the place, and so this shoe you definitely have to keep clean on the bottom. So tons of wiping, pretty much every single dead ball, and if you are able to do that, then these are going to perform quite well for you on the traction portion. Even being a fast-paced guard, low to the ground, quick moving, change of directions, things like that, this traction surface was actually able to hold up. The only thing that I think is weird, that I actually don't remember if this happened to my original pair, but the original pair I used to play both indoors and outdoors, is that these guys here, the rubber is like tearing apart, just from being used so much. So it's happening a little bit over here, just like the high wear areas. I wouldn't say it's tearing apart, it's just kind of like peeling, which is kind of strange. So I don't know if that's glue, or if that's some sort of coating, or if that's the rubber itself. Actually, yeah, it's the rubber. So yeah, that's the only thing that I think is kind of weird. So it's interesting at the same time, just because underneath that there's brand new, like fresh traction, but like it's I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's just like little divots now like inside the shoe. So that's something to be made aware of if you were to plan on playing in a pair. But the traction itself, I think, was actually really good for what you're given. What you see here in the heel, that is the actual Hexalite bag. It's placed inside the shoe and under the insole. You can't really see it, but you can feel its impression if you are pressing on the inner liner. Now, I cannot feel any Hexalite with my hands inside the forefoot, so I'm assuming that the forefoot is just straight up foam. If you're wondering what these pods are here on the front and backs of both sides, those are just Hexalite pods for design. So they are actual Hexalite units, they're just not functional. Your foot actually sits about right here, and then on this one it sits right in the middle there. So it's for design, it's for looks. In my opinion, it might be just because like they were competing with Nike and things like that back in the day. So Nike had visible air, which was actual functioning air, whereas these guys here, your visible Hexalite that's functional is actually underneath and not these side versions here. One of the Shaq shoes had just these huge chunky midsole with like giant Hexalite pods that went all the way almost up to your ankle. It's just for looks. It's not not functional or anything like that. But it does feel really good. Hexalite's able to distribute your weight. So when you impact or land on it, it's able to distribute it a little bit better than an air cushion while taking up less space. So it's a little bit lighter in weight. They put it in a real targeted section, as you can see, so it's just underneath your strike zone instead of covering the entire heel like an air unit would. That's kind of like where Zoom Air comes into play, because Zoom Air is very targeted, just like this guy right here. Now the foam in this one is much softer than the 2009 pair. The 2009 pair is very, very hard and rigid and just doesn't break in. This foam, right from the get-go, straight out the box, it was awesome. It's very soft, very plush. It's the closest thing to their original versions that I've ever worn, to be perfectly honest. Not completely just like the original, but as close as you can almost get. Now, the best part about the shoe, I mentioned this in the review, is the insole itself. It is It's a foam-based insole. I think it's partially polyurethane. It can't be all the way because it's so fluffy. It's a lot less dense than a typical polyurethane insole. But basically you have this crash pad in the heel, which feels amazing, especially in conjunction with the Hexalite that they provide and the foam itself. And then the forefoot, you have that diamond-shaped pad as well, which gives you pretty good cushion in the forefoot while keeping you low to the ground for court feel. Materials on the Reebok question, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Basically, you have your translucent rubber on the bottom, your foam and Hexalite along the midsole, and you have just straight up full grain leather all along the upper with the mesh tongue. I really like the materials. The only downside is that it just doesn't last too much on court like you would get from a synthetic or a split grain with a polyurethane coat, something that other brands do use. Now, having this on your feet, it's just, in my opinion, growing up in the 90s, there's no better feeling than wrapping actual leather around your foot, like top to bottom leather. Polyurethane coated leather, split grains, and synthetics like fuses and things like that, that's great for durability, and it's much more functional on court long-term wise. But this is just something that I actually prefer. Once it's broken in, it's like wearing a sock. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of you people that know what I'm talking about pretty much know where I'm going. Just leather is just awesome to have on a sneaker in general, in my opinion. The only downside is just that it doesn't retain its shape as well as some of the newer stuff. As far as the fit is concerned, it is true to size. At least in my opinion, I didn't have any problems. I had just enough space in the toe without it being too constricting. The fit itself, it was kind of weird to get adjusted to it because a lot of these newer shoes have very narrow fitting elasts. So if you play in Fuse or Hyperfuse, Hyperdunks, even some of Reebok's like newer stuff, like they just fit, everything fits a lot more narrow than like this shoe right here. So this one, it felt great as far as its fit. It was true to size, but once everything was laced up, I had to keep readjusting these laces because, like I was saying earlier in the material section, the leather is just unable to retain its shape completely. One, due to the leather, and two, due to the ventilation system. So, but basically, as soon as I laced these up all the way, I was pretty much good to go. They don't look as cool when they're laced up all the way, but you know, it is what it is. And throughout the course of the night, I'd have to keep readjusting those laces because it would just keep getting more and more loose the more time that I spent on court. The only complaint that I have is, one, the material overall doesn't retain its shape, so it does kind of warp your fit a little bit, especially if you're moving at high speeds and you're going to change directions real quick. This material is not going to be able to keep your foot solidly in place like something new would, which is pretty much a given. And then the second thing is that the lockdown along the back, like the ankle and the heel, is just not the best. It's not really ideal. To be perfectly honest, I personally don't have an issue with it, like for me, but I know that a lot of newer players and things like that probably wouldn't like the way that these guys fit in the heel. It just doesn't give you that secured, supreme lockdown that you might expect or that you're used to in some of the newer models from today. So the ventilation in the shoe, it's again pretty simple and straightforward. You basically just have the mesh tongue here, and then underneath the mesh tongue you have a lot of padding inside, and then you have some layers over that material with perforations in place. That's all the ventilation that you're getting, and you can definitely feel the difference, especially if you're going from this shoe to a newer shoe with tons of ventilation, because ventilation is pretty much you know, at the forefront of most people's minds at this point. And that is what had a factor in the material losing its shape over time. It just wasn't able to hold up as well. And again, this is a 90s shoe, so this is something that, you know, we should be used to already, or at least expect going on court, which is something that I do expect. So the best thing to do is just keep an open mind. If you do require to have maximum ventilation, this obviously is not going to be an ideal choice for you. If you do not, you know, need or require ventilation, then this is something that you might want to consider. As far as overall support is concerned, your basic support is coming from the material and fit itself, which is lacking a little bit, and the heel fit or lockdown was not the best, as I was saying earlier. The rest of your support is actually coming from the midsole itself, because your foot is resting inside to about here along most of the midsole. This extra hump that you see along the sides, that is pretty much kind of caging your foot right along here. So that's what's supposed to be able to keep you stable. It does keep you stable on the platform or base, but it has to be able to work with the upper itself, which it does not work too well once the upper starts to get soft and moist and lose its shape over time. So this plays exactly like a 90s shoe, which is something that you should already be expecting if you plan to play in this. What I would recommend is if you've played in a pair of Questions before and you've actually loved them, then go ahead and grab one of the new ones, either from this release or the future releases that they will be doing later on this year, and play in those. If you have not played in a pair of Questions and you only play in the newer stuff, this might be something that you'd want to just kind of look past and maybe use for casual use. Alright guys, so that takes care of the review on the 2012 Reebok Question. If you were to choose this over the 2009 version, I'd definitely choose this one just based off of comfort alone. However, if you're not used to playing in a 90s shoe, you might want to go with something that's a little bit newer or more up to date. Personally, this is my favorite shoe of all time to play in, so I absolutely enjoyed my time on court playing in this shoe. But it is definitely not adequate as far as today's game or today's performance. So keep that in mind. If you've played in a pair, go for it. If you have not, then you might want to think of something else, stick in something a little bit more current. And that's pretty much it. For more information on this shoe, for a list of top 10 sneakers of 2012, and scores and all that kind of good stuff, you can go to my site, kicksoncourt.com. So until next time, guys, have a good one.
And every month I'd hop on a plane to fly in and take a shopping whatever she wants to buy. Yeah, she made me who I am. I got the heart of a lion. Yeah, and for that, mama, I'm gratified.